Alright, so if you only have 1 minute, I'm going to give you everything I'm going to talk about in this video. Ready? What do you think this is, and where do you think it is? If you guessed a gasometer in South Philadelphia, you are correct. These are some of the topics that we are going to cover today, and I'm actually going to take you with me on a journey to this exact site, and we can see what lies in its place today. Spoiler, it's not that wonderful. I'm also going to close the loop on a couple places I've already talked about. I'm going to show you some interesting sites that have to do with some interesting people, and we even find a tunnel going beneath this. Finally, I'll take you to what seems to be the crown of Philadelphia and why we know it's that and what we find there. Welcome back to another episode of Geomancy. Essentially what I do here is I connect dots through time and space, primarily looking at the buildings and the architectural layouts that we see in cities worldwide. Although today I'm going to be back in a familiar place thanks to two channels who recently featured some pretty interesting information on what I'm going to present to you today. Gas Empire by the channel Conspiracy R Us, and A Bird's Eye View of History by Jon Levi channel. If you're familiar with them, they do great work. We'll get into that. But first of all, what's up with these gasometers? Well, as you can see, Tom Scott is saying those big round things behind me are gasometers. What are gasometers? They're tanks, canisters that essentially hold gas, and they go below the ground and they rise up when the gas is full. So based on the volume of the gas, you'll see these things go up and down historically. They're not in use today, just like a lot of older tech. Now we use subterranean gas pipelines, but I want you to know one thing about these. It seems like we have these gasometers from about 4 different eras or epochs, right? This looks like it could have been in the last 100 years or so, maybe even 150. This here in South Philly looks like it could be easily in the last 20 to 40 years. This one, also in South Philly, in the same exact place where that other one is standing, looks like it could easily be in the last 1,000 years. And then this in King's Cross, London, perhaps the last 500 years. Who really knows? So one of the ideas with resets is that we see a lot of technology spanning time that doesn't really explain itself well. As you can see here in King's Cross, they've converted these into flats. Must be a pretty nice place to live. But also in King's Cross is this wonder. And I just want to mention while I'm on it, King's Cross is named after King George IV, who we see here, and who this monument was erected in honor. I want you to pay close attention to his head and his crown at the top, because at the very end of this video, we're going to connect some dots. So, what are we getting into first? Jon Levi recently posted this video showing different aerial maps of towns and cities in the United States. And he showed this map of Philadelphia, which is featured in the Library of Congress. And of course, I'm going to link it in the description, as I will all the information and resources that I'm using. But one of the things that we're just going to talk about, he asked, what are these interesting structures? Well, it's the Point Breeze Gas Works. That's what those interesting structures are. And you can see in this old image here, we've got one fella here hard at work, as usual. Anyway, looking at this map, it's pretty spectacular map yet again. I don't know who these map makers are or what their flying machines are, but they are really able to get levels of detail that rival what we have today, and I'm going to show you that. So I'm going to enhance this just like in the movies. Bang. what are these structures, right? They look very fascinating. They look like crowns. They look like something I've never been taught about, and I wasn't until recent. And as you can see here, what on earth are they? Well, in this exact location, and if you pay attention to the details, you'll recognize here's a different angle. This is from 1852. This is the Philadelphia Gas Works, and it basically shows the different facilities on this premise. This is located at the 2200 to 2300 blocks of Market Street in Philly. And later on, I'm going to take you to this location and show you what we find. But I want you to pay attention to the details, to the themes, to the different architectural elements that you see, okay? So, how can we find where it is located on Market Street? I'm going to show you using 3 different maps spanning about 400 years. We're going to use a map that I've already showed before. Here we see this late 1600s map of Philadelphia. This is in the exact location of 2200 to 2300 Market Street. In my previous video, I mentioned that Market Street used to be called High Street, and we see high streets all over the world. I wonder what High Street really means, especially after finding some of this stuff. So next, I'm going to show you that 1800s aerial map, and we can see this location shown here, right? Forget the other buildings. And by the way, this cathedral that you see in the top left, I have featured that without saying anything in a previous video as well. But this is what we see. In modern times, this exact location is here in Philadelphia, and I'll show you from the side. Now, why is this notable? Because I've pointed out before that this is called Commerce Square in Philadelphia, and it connects with other points in Philadelphia. While doing research for this video, I also discovered something about Market Street in Philadelphia that's notable, and you're going to see how it connects to all of these other points as well. Thomas Jefferson, the primary author of the Declaration of Independence, wrote this document at a 3-story residence at 700 Market Street, okay? Well, I'm going to show you using a composite of multiple maps where this area is. So, we know where 2200 to 2300 Market Street is. That's where Commerce Square is roughly. Commerce Square is about 2000 Market Street. But that whole block and area is where the gasworks was. The Crown, right? Well, going all the way down the street, 700 Market Street is located in the Kingdom, where the U.S. courthouse today is located, and Jefferson's house, apartment or house or whatever it was, is in that a block away, literally a stone's throw away. So what did the Crown look like? Well, I showed you this, and I mean, you can debate me, is this a crown or is it not? So all of that is nice. We know where it's located, but what are these buildings and what are they used for? In the next video, Gas Empire by Conspiracy R Us, he goes into some of these interesting structures that we see. And if you didn't know that this building had anything to do with gas, you'd probably assume that these people standing outside had just gotten out of church and, you know, they were about to get on with their day. But no, that is called a retort house, part of the gas processing facility. So we're going to go into that a little bit. And here you see the Point Breeze Gas Works. I'll link to some of these resources below. And apparently these gasworks were built in this Gothic revival style for whatever reason. That's what they tell us. Of course, we have different narratives, but really what we're after is why. We can see these things. Why are they done the way that they are? Here's some other images of this site in Philly. And again, you would never guess that this is for gas or energy or power or, you know, facilities. You would think, hey, that's probably a religious building of sorts. And it makes us wonder, were all these religious buildings truly religious buildings? That's for later. But here's another image from more recent times of this facility. And this is a diagram, a schematic, not a technical drawing. So we know this is not a drawing where they were actually using it to build. This is just showing different features, components, and whatnot. And again, why did they build in this style, truly, for gas? This looks what we're told to be some religious building. Or at least religious buildings have these features, and this is where it becomes interesting. So again, here's an image from back in the day, mid-1800s, our favorite time period. Just pay attention to all the details and whatnot, because I'm going to take you to this place and show you what we see. And again, here we have two hardworking men. I'm not going to take away from anything they're doing, because that work looks a lot harder than me standing here talking about it. But I think they didn't have anything to do with building this facility, any of the infrastructure. I'm almost certain, it was already there and they just had to work it. So here you can see transportation method of getting all the materials and resources to where they needed to be. That looks like a landing pad for some otherworldly vehicle or something. I mean, gas? Basically what's happening is the gas tank is below the ground and it rises up as the gas gets filled. So I'm going to show you what we find when I explored the Philadelphia Gas Works and what we see in these areas. And it's pretty interesting. Stay tuned. My journey to understand the Philadelphia Gas Works began at 3101 East Passyunk Avenue in Philadelphia, where I found the best thing that our current civilization can muster up. I went to Broad Street to check out the headquarters of the Philadelphia Gas Works and was delighted to find this building with interesting architectural features that we seem to find everywhere. And it was closed, naturally. I had to drive by that gasometer and the facility itself, and look what I spotted. Interesting. Next, we needed to figure out the crown of Philadelphia and what is really located here at Market Street. In previous video, I've made mention of Commerce Square and how it appears Commerce Square is located at the crown. So this is my journey into Commerce Square. Greeted by an arch. We've got a fountain. The fountain has 12 points around it. 12-pointed star there. So what do you think about this? I just go investigate, I can't draw conclusions, but it seems like it's a crown to me. Alright, so for the next part of this, we're going to go a little deeper into this building that I brought up in a previous video, this Philadelphia Public Library Spring Garden branch, donated by none other than Andrew Carnegie as part of his 2,509 libraries that he had a hand in creating in 46 years. I've already mentioned that this building looks like these buildings that I'm encountering all over the place, but one of the interesting connections is that it also looks like this building in Utah, and this building in Utah has a similar connection. Funds were donated by the Baldwin Locomotive Works for both of these buildings. So, I went, I checked it out, and I'm going to show you my findings. On my way to the Carnegie Library, I passed this park, and this park happened to be called Baldwin Park. I noticed a cathedral not too far that I have visited. Not too shabby. Anyway, at the park we find all these different formations in honor of Baldwin, whoever this figure is. Well, he's a locomotive entrepreneur who started the Baldwin Locomotive Works. And I found, not too far from this park, a abandoned railway that seems to lead to tunnels underneath of the city. Interesting. But this park is about 2 blocks away from the Carnegie Library. On the way to the Carnegie Library, I passed this church. Church or machine or whatever we're calling these things these days. Some form of technology. So here's the location of the library in or around 1907 when it was said to have been created, and this is what we have in its location today, the Community College of Philadelphia. Even though that building's not too special, in the area we have some pretty cool, notable buildings. Again, our favorite feature right there. And that building is located right next to where this Carnegie Library was. I wonder if it was there originally. Here's a close-up. Formerly housed the United States Mint. Interesting building and placement. Across the street is Masterman High School, which is one of the best high schools in America, apparently. Also located in a nice building. And in the neighborhood, we have these homes clearly suitable for beings at least 8-10 feet tall. And we find windows buried in the ground, as we'd expect. Refacading, refinishing to suit the current people. But this last one coming up, this last one is the John B. Stetson House. If you don't know who he is, he's the creator of the cowboy hat. And he created that allegedly in the 1860s in Philadelphia. Looks like he picked a nice reset mansion. Okay, here's an extra bonus. This is just deeper for people that are like me that want to know more and connect more dots, and I could use help with this part because this is all up in the air. But I've already been talking about cities being electrical and laid out like grids, right? Well, I've mentioned how cathedrals are cathedrals, right? We see that these cathedrals all over the place seem to be much more powerful and have to do with energy than meets the eye. I stumbled upon cathode ray tubes and this technology. If you forget, cathode ray tubes, basically an old way of displaying images back in the day on TVs. Before we have this liquid crystals, this is how it was. But I think this technology goes deeper in other ways, because looking at these basic diagrams of how the technology works, what do we see? We see this really interesting symbol, the cross patty. And this symbol is all over the place. in high places, right? So what does this really have to do? Cathedrals, cathodes, what do the words even mean? Well, cathedral, I'm not going to read the definition because we know what a cathedral is, but here's where it stems from. It stems from late Latin cathedralis, from cathedra, from the Greek cathedra, and what it means is seat or throne. For cathode, we have the negatively charged electrode by which electrons enter an electrical device, the opposite of an anode. We also have the positively charged electrode of an electrical device, such as a primary cell that supplies current. So basically, we have a flow of energy in and out. And it comes from the Greek kathodos, way down. I think this is interesting because with cathedrals, what do we find? We find these beings that seem to be charged up and have crowns, okay? And crowns, when we look at crowns, we see this symbol that we see in the cathode. Could it be that this symbol, what it truly means or what it does at some level, is project, and that's why it's up at the top at the crown? Perhaps. These things are pretty nice, right? I wouldn't mind one. Oh snap, look, I got one. Just kidding. So this is why I told you to pay attention in the beginning. This is a pretty controversial coin, and I don't even want to get into it deeply, but this image is said to be Queen Charlotte's son, George IV. Not looking like what I showed you at the beginning, right? But you could see him wearing this crown with plumes and the symbol, the words "I serve," which relate to Wales. But look at the top of that statue, right? That looks like his head. And that is a pretty nice crown. So here are a couple different images of him with different issues of this penny, the Barbados copper. But we also see this symbol even in images that I've showed, and some I've just discovered. Now, the Brotherhood of Blackheads. What an interesting name, right? In Riga, Latvia. Who knew there were blackheads in Riga, Latvia? Well, check them out. Pretty nice place, right? Alright, so if you didn't click away yet, I'm going to show you some of the techniques that I use to figure out cool places. So first we're going to look at King's Cross on Google Earth and just see what we find in this area. So these are the gasometers turned into apartments or flats. Right next to it we have a rail station too, interestingly. And these look neoclassical, pretty nice. There's a park, gas holder park. Pretty cool stuff. I mean, I had no idea that this was a thing. So next we're gonna check out St. Pancras rail station. And this structure is what I showed in the very beginning. Here's an image of it allegedly under construction in 1868, and that's the only image we have. But this thing looks like it's from another planet. And actually, it kind of looks like this Brotherhood of the Blackheads place that I showed earlier too. They got the same Antiquitech. Really nice craftsmanship. They must have called the same contractors or masons, for that matter. But yeah, that's a sight to behold. So now we're in Philly, and this is City Hall. Again, another building that seems like it's from another planet. This was the largest administration building in the world at one point. But what I like to do with City Hall is I like to take the center courtyard and connect dots. Next to it, we have the Masonic Temple. So here's what happens when I look at the center of City Hall, and we're gonna connect some lines. And I usually do this by accident just to see what happens, and I come across cool places. So let me get my bearings straight real quick. Hold on here, up. Hold up, which way are we going? All right, there we go. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna start at City Hall, and I'm gonna connect it here to the Eastern State Penitentiary. Why? I don't know. Only because I know that this is a node. I mean, look at how it's placed and where it's placed. This is what that place looks like. I captured these images. But once we connect these 2 points, look what I find in the middle. Matthias Baldwin Park, the same park that I showed you footage of earlier. And the line runs through exactly the center of the park. Now, this kind of stuff is not an accident. I don't know how it's done or why it's done, but when you find it, you find it. So next to this park, we see a wall, a pretty, high retaining wall, about a story. And the entire city looks like it's built on top of this. Now, this area is said to have been a former railway track, which, Baldwin was a railway entrepreneur. Railway track next to his park goes beneath the city. And also this line lines up pretty nicely with the street. Keep in mind too that this street right here, which is 18th Street, is on a bias to all the others, which are on a grid. So the fact that the line lines up lets you know that it's intentional. But here, this area that was formerly train tracks goes beneath the city, and then who knows where it leads. I've heard about City Hall having tunnels beneath it. Perhaps it leads there. A lot of the city has tunnels beneath it. But a block away from this park is the area where the Carnegie Library was, and some of the footage that I showed you, you can see on the top left up here. So I'll be doing more of these connecting the dots between points. That's kind of how I got into this stuff, and seeing that things really do line up in ways that are mysterious. So you should try it out and see what you find. Thank you for watching. As usual, like, comment, and subscribe. I'll keep doing this. I got a lot more to share, and the insights just keep going and keep leading me places. Take care. Stay blessed.